So now that we have a little outline of this, let's go in and implement it. So wait until element is displayed. I F12 over to here, and what we need in here is a way to dynamically wait and see if an element is present. So this obviously should be an int, and I'm just going to call it timeout. So to do that, I'm going to start with a Boolean. Start it with false, right? That this element is not present. Then what we need is our WebDriver. All right, so what I wrote here is that a WebDriver has an implicit timeout built into it that if something doesn't happen within that timeout, is going to throw a WebDriver timeout exception. And so this WebDriver timeout exception is set in this WebDriver.timeouts for the WebDriver. And so what we need to do is, before we proceed with searching for an element, we need to set this timeout to something like 0. Because what can happen is, when we're searching for an element and the element is not returned in time, but the WebDriver timeout is higher than the element search timeout, then it's going to wait for the WebDriver timeout interval, right? So if the WebDriver timeout interval is set to, let's say, 10 seconds, and we're looking for the element for 1 second, and the element is not returned within 1 second, then we want a failure. But because the WebDriver timeout is set to 10 seconds, that's how long the WebDriver is going to wait for that element to be returned. Therefore, we need to be able to bypass that so that we can wait for the element for a certain period of time before we throw the exception. And we want to be able to specify that time. So that's what I did with that line there. Then I need a try block. And inside of the try block, we're going to catch a no such element exception, because this is the exception that's going to be returned when the element is not found. And then I'm going to do a present. And then simply I'm just going to use our WebDriver to do a find element. The standard thing, we're going to find our element. Which element? We're going to do the element here, right? Find this element. And then one other thing that you guys have not seen before is you can do a dot displayed property. And what that does is returns a Boolean of true or false. See that? It's a Boolean and gets the value indicating whether or not this element is displayed. And then returns that Boolean, and that Boolean is great for us because then we can return a true or false if an element is displayed, right? If the element is not displayed, we return false. If the element is displayed, we return true. So very cool, right? And so here we do the present. I don't need any of this. So if it's not present, we're going to catch that exception. And then we need this line up here again. Oops, placed it in the wrong spot. We need it here. And then we're just returning present. And that's it, right? So it's going to be false unless here it's returned true, and then it gets returned. And then down here, we need to reset our WebDriver timeout back to a certain limit, let's say like 10 seconds. And then now our WebDriver will time out again after 10 seconds. So we're going to look for an element, and then we give WebDriver room to be able to do things without timing out again.